everyone, in this video today I'm going to be talking about self-esteem and confidence when you have a neuro condition. Now, living with a neuro condition such as autism, ADHD, Tourette's, whatever you have, sometimes it can affect your self-esteem for a variety of reasons. Now, some people with things like autism and ADHD may struggle with executive functioning, so people may struggle starting tasks, and some people may also struggle getting things done. Some people may struggle to follow instructions correctly. Maybe that's due to a sensory processing issue as well. You're not really taking it in. Could be due to an inability to pay attention. And this can cause people to make mistakes. I know a symptom of ADHD is making careless mistakes. But that can make people feel incompetent, and that can definitely affect someone's self-esteem. So I think in that sort of case, I think it is important to, again, develop self-compassion. This is something I go on about loads, but I think it is really important because self-compassion really does help with self-acceptance and can improve your well-being in the sense that you don't judge yourself anymore. But even though you may kind of in general feel quite incompetent, you're really not. You may struggle to follow instructions or do things that require a lot of focus and detail, but you might be really creative, or you might be a really good writer, or you might be really good at sports. All these things are really important, and although you may struggle to follow instructions and do things that other people may do, or you may struggle to focus, that doesn't make you less of a person. It just means you're different, and that is completely fine. Another thing is certain traits that people might have because of their neuro conditions may be labelled something that's like bad by society, and again that can affect someone's self-esteem. So for example, if someone has ADHD and their hyperactivity is thought of as immaturity, which it's not, but if it was thought of as that of course would affect someone's self-esteem. If someone's autistic and they can't make eye contact because it's uncomfortable, then people may judge that as being rude when obviously it's not. So again, the first thing I would say in that sort of situation is advocate for yourself if you're being judged like that. But if it's sort of like internalized ableism where it's judging yourself, which a lot of people do have, then I would say keep being yourself and see if you can view things in a different way. Again, like the last point, seeing your strengths, but also seeing things in a different way. So with the eye contact thing, sometimes you don't actually need to force eye contact. Some people do learn methods of like looking between someone's eyebrows or something that can really help some people, but if it's really uncomfortable for you, then I guess you could just get to the point where you just care about your well-being a lot and you don't really care about being different because you realise that being different is a good thing. And if you're hyperactive, then viewing that as something that is, it makes you energetic, it makes you spontaneous, it makes you creative, it makes you have a drive and stuff like that, can actually be a good thing. So if your mind is labeling it as a bad thing, you can switch that view and see that it may actually have positives, and over time that may make you feel a bit more confident in yourself, and I think that's really important. Another way in which conditions can affect your self-esteem is if you have something like Tourette's or OCD. You may feel very you may feel very frustrated towards yourself for not being able to stop things. This is something I have seen and experienced quite a bit. But people may be frustrated themselves for ticking, and they may feel like they're lacking willpower. But you have to remind yourself that that's that's completely false. Ticking is not a lack of willpower. It's misfired signals from the brain. And you're allowed to tick loud and proud because that's what's best for you. And the more you try and fight it, the worse it can get sometimes. And with OCD as well, you have to have that sort of self-compassion and know that you are struggling a lot. You are really anxious. This is really hard for you. There's nothing wrong with feeling scared. And just because you do compulsions, that doesn't make you weak. It takes actually a long time sometimes to reduce the compulsions. And that doesn't make you a bad person. It does just take time. You're not going to get better overnight, and that's okay. So I think having that little level of self-compassion and knowing that it's not a personal flaw that you have these symptoms or struggle with things is really, really helpful. Sometimes you may really struggle to do things that your peers do, and this can make you feel lesser than others, but again, this is false. For example, if you have ADHD and you really struggle to follow instructions, then you may not be able to do some sort of nursing course that your friends are doing or something, because you do not have the capacity to remember what is said to you, follow instructions and take things into consideration, because you may be very inattentive and impulsive, but that's okay. It doesn't make you any less of a person for doing things differently. It means, again, you have a different way of doing things. You can use what strengths you do have and what capabilities that you do have to do something that is really meant for you, rather than trying to do what everyone else is doing. Sometimes if you have something like a condition that can make your emotions change quite quickly, or can make you seem very sensitive, like ADHD, autism, PANDAS, PANS, then you may, again, judge yourself for being very sensitive and reactive, and that can affect your self-esteem. But again, changing the perspective can help. Knowing that, your experiences might actually make you a more interesting person. They may help you develop empathy and compassion, as you know what it's like to feel different. You know what it's like to have your emotions shift quickly and struggle with things, and react in ways that others may not understand. I think it does, if you have a neuro condition, it likely does make you a more understanding person. And, sometimes being a kind and understanding person is so much more important than being able to focus on something and do an intricate task. Character is a lot more important than the some of the abilities you may struggle with. But even though you struggle with certain abilities, you have really good abilities in some areas. For example, many autistic people have special interests. So even though we may struggle with some things, people on the autism spectrum likely have an area in which they can, absorb just so many facts about something, and that can be a wonderful thing. Similar with ADHD as well, there's hyperfocus, and that can cause problems as well sometimes, but some people with ADHD can actually really focus on one topic and know a lot about it, and that can be amazing. So, seeing your strengths is really, really important. No matter what others may think of you, you can sort of build your own self-esteem sometimes, and remind yourself that the inability to do things the same way as others isn't your fault, it's a symptom. The fact that you struggle is just because your brain works differently, and again, it's not a personal flaw in any way, shape or form. And as well as that, you do have many strengths, and just because your brain is working differently to the brains of others, it's not a bad thing at all. Of course it causes many struggles, but at the same time, you may actually develop strengths and things from it, like a lot of empathy and resilience, and you may learn from your experiences. Some people with neuro conditions may also have lower self-esteem and confidence, because people may not do, or may struggle to do, the sorts of things people their age normally do. So someone may feel bad for not being able to work if they have a disability that prevents them from being able to work. But again, that isn't your fault. Our worth doesn't come from what we do. We are inherently worthy. That's just an idea we hold within us. And you have so much worth regardless of whether you can do things that society says are typical for the people your age. And we're allowed to do things in our own way at a pace that works for us, because we are all different. And if you have a neuro condition, then, sometimes we seem very different. But again, that is okay. We just do things in a way that works for us, and we can take a different path in life. And sometimes that can actually lead us to much better places. Some people may think to themselves that they would be in a much better place in life if they didn't have their condition, whether that be ADHD, autism, PANDAS, PANS, etc. And although it may be true that you would be able to do more and be more productive if you didn't have the conditions, that isn't the most important thing. We can't change how we are now and what we experience. So I think it is actually really important to accept the conditions that we have and the symptoms that we have until things improve. Obviously, still work to improve things for yourself and to make things easier, but where you are now, you thinking I would be in a much better place if I didn't have this. We can't change the past. We can't change what we may have struggled to do, and we can't change where we are in life now. But where we are is where we're supposed to be. The other thing is just an idea that we have in our mind of what things should have been like. It's normal to have that, but at the same time, you don't need to make you feel bad about yourself or about your life, because it can I mean, it is very frustrating having a condition, but sometimes it can lead you down another path that is even better than the one you thought you should go down. Another thing is that people who struggle to pay attention due to a neuro condition like ADHD, autism, PANDAS, PANS, etc., we may keep making the same mistake again and again and again and again and again. And that can definitely affect someone's self-esteem, because you get frustrated at yourself and be like, why am I not learning? Why can I not do this? But sometimes it is because our brains work so fast, and executive dysfunction makes it very difficult to put the things we learn in place sometimes. So I think as well, the way others react to us has a really huge impact on our self-esteem. The way people treat us has a huge impact on our self-esteem. So I think if you're watching this and you know someone who has a neuro condition, whether that be autism, Tourette's, PANDAS, PANS, ADHD, whatever it is, please treat that person with compassion and, understand if they have ADHD, they may make a lot of mistakes. They may be very hyper, they may struggle to pay attention, they may seem like they're not taking things in. It's not their fault. They are trying so hard. They are likely trying harder than their neurotypical peers, so much harder, but because their brain is functioning very differently, it makes it very, very difficult. So it's really important to be as loving and as understanding and as compassionate as possible. And, if you snap and get frustrated towards them, then forgive yourself, because I know we all do that sort of thing. But just try to be as empathetic and as understanding as you can. That doesn't mean, that doesn't mean brushing everything off. That doesn't mean not allowing the person to take responsibility of things, because of course if someone does make a serious mistake, then it is important to take responsibility of it. But please understand that some people do things differently, and it's important to have a lot of compassion towards an individual, even when they seem to make the same mistake over and over again. And if you know someone with autism, for example, then please accept them exactly as they are, as much as you can. Like, don't try and force someone to go into the box of what's normal, because normal does not exist. It's sort of I think what people mean by normal is a sort of idealized sense of how someone should be, but that's not necessarily how they really should be, because we are all who we should be. We are worthy of love and acceptance exactly as we are. So please, accept people, and don't try and force people to change. Don't like demonize people's autistic traits or anything. That's really harmful. So I would say just be, again, as compassionate as you can. But someone with PANDAS, PANS, or Tourette's having rage attacks, a lot of us feel remorse after a rage attack. So I think it's important to, if you know someone who has rage attacks or meltdowns if it's autism, understand that when a person does that, they aren't trying to be badly behaved, they aren't doing it on purpose. It is a neurological storm. The person is feeling overwhelmed and distressed, and they need nothing more than your comfort and support. If we are treated with compassion, then we learn how to be compassionate towards ourselves, as the way we are treated becomes ingrained into our minds, and that affects our self-esteem and how we view ourselves for our whole lives sometimes. But of course, if you do have a sort of self-critical voice in your head, don't get angry at that voice, but just know that it's false, and you can change it over time. Even if you haven't been treated nicely, it's possible to empower yourself. That's fully possible. So many people have done it. So first of all, if you're around someone with a neuro condition, please be as compassionate as you can, because that does become their inner voice. But even if you do have quite a self-critical or angry or judgmental inner voice, it can change. It's okay. And as more and more people become more compassionate, I believe it's easier to eliminate that harsh inner voice, because I feel like it can change over time if we are treated nicely.